The American frontier's most pivotal moments trace an arc of ambition, conflict, enterprise, and nation-building that still reverberates across the plains and mountains. In less than half a century, daring riders proved coast-to-coast communication possible, drovers carved dusty highways for livestock, and homesteaders rushed over survey lines drawn across indigenous homelands. Treaties redrew borders, mineral strikes lured global migrations, and legislative incentives seeded countless farms while uprooting cultures older than the Republic. Battles and massacres exposed the brutal stakes of expansion even as railroads hammered iron threads that stitched disparate territories into one economic fabric. Together, these episodes illustrate how technology, law, and raw human desire accelerated settlement, enriched a few, dispossessed many, and forged enduring myths of rugged individualism. Understanding them illuminates the foundations and contradictions of modern America's continental reach. Their echoes guide policy, memory, and tourism across today's West. Gunfight at the OK Corral. On October 26, 1881, a dusty tombstone alley near the OK Corral exploded in gunfire when lawmen Virgil Wyatt and Morgan Earp, backed by gambler dentist Doc Holliday, squared off against cowboy rustlers Ike and Billy Clanton with Tom and Frank McLaury. 30 seconds, 31 shots, 3 dead outlaws, and 2 wounded Earps later, the duel was over, yet its echo still shapes America's idea of frontier justice. Newspapers nationwide sensationalized the confrontation, selling thousands of copies and inspiring dime novels, stage plays, and eventually films. The coroner's inquest, subsequent murder trial, and revenge ambushes fed a years-long legal drama that highlighted the struggle between municipal law and county politics in booming mining towns. Though minor compared with wars and treaties, the shootout's enduring mythology turned Tombstone into Arizona's most visited Old West destination. It remains a lasting study in escalation. Pony Express debut. On April 3, 1860, a rider galloped out of St. Joseph, Missouri, beginning the Pony Express, an audacious private venture to deliver mail nearly 1,900 miles to Sacramento in just 10 days. 80 skilled horsemen, including teenage Buffalo Bill Cody, raced between 190 relay stations, changing mounts every 12 miles and earning up to $125 a month, which was handsome frontier pay. The company invested $200,000 in 400 horses, yet lasted only 18 months before the Transcontinental Telegraph rendered it bankrupt. Still, the service proved that a reliable, rapid communication line across the Plains, Rockies, and Sierra Nevada was possible, uniting news of Lincoln's election and looming Civil War with the Pacific Coast in record time. Its romantic image of fearless riders braving storms, deserts, and hostile attacks continues to symbolize determination in America's westward narrative and bold technological ingenuity of frontier entrepreneurs. Chisholm Trail Cattle Drive. From 1867 to 1885, cowboys pushed some 5 million longhorns northward along the Chisholm Trail from Texas ranges to railheads in Abilene, Newton, and Ellsworth, Kansas, forging the archetypal cattle drive. The trail, named for trader Jesse Chisholm, stretched roughly 1,000 dusty miles across Indian Territory, where drovers faced stampedes, river crossings, and quarrelsome herds worth up to $40 a head. Towns sprang up almost overnight. Abilene shipped 440,200 cattle by 1871, spawning saloons, dance halls, and occasional gunfights. The drives generated an estimated $100 million for Texas ranchers, financed rail expansion, and popularized open-range ranching techniques later exported worldwide. Barbed wire, quarantines, and rail lines into Texas eventually ended the trail era, yet its song, slang, and wide-brimmed Stetsons defined cowboy culture for decades to come. The Oklahoma Land Rush. At noon on April 22, 1889, a cannon blast unleashed an estimated 50,000 hopeful settlers who raced across the unassigned lands of Central Indian Territory to stake 160-acre homestead claims in the first Oklahoma Land Rush. Horsemen, wagons, bicycles, and even steam locomotives surged over 1.9 million acres formerly reserved for native nations, birthing instant towns like Oklahoma City, which grew from 0 to 10,000 residents in a single day. Surveyors registered nearly 11,000 filings within hours, and by sunset every fertile patch was flagged, sparking lawsuits against Sooners who sneaked in early. The rush previewed a series of openings that would dissolve the territory's communal land base and accelerate statehood by 1907. While it symbolized democratic opportunity for many settlers, it also marked a dramatic dispossession of indigenous lands, reshaping demographics and agricultural development on the southern plains. Battle of the Little Bighorn. On June 25, 1876, near the Little Bighorn River in present-day Montana, Lieutenant Colonel George A. Custer led 607th Cavalry troopers against a coalition of Lakota Sioux, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho defending their hunting grounds. Under leaders Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and Gall, roughly 1,800 warriors surrounded and annihilated Custer's 210-man detachment within an hour, killing the flamboyant officer and sparking national shock. The victory, costing the tribes about 60 casualties, briefly stalled U.S. expansion, yet public outrage fueled a massive military response that forced most Plains peoples onto reservations within a year. Newspapers dubbed the fight Custer's Last Stand, creating a martyr and romantic myth that obscured treaty violations provoking the conflict. The battle remains a flashpoint in Native American relations, military strategy studies, and debates over memorializing resistance versus conquest in the American West to this very day. Wounded Knee Massacre. On December 29, 1890, snow swept the frozen plains of South Dakota as the U.S. 7th Cavalry attempted to disarm a band of Miniconjou and Hunkpapa Lakota camped near Wounded Knee Creek. A gun discharged amid the tension. Soldiers opened with Hotchkiss cannon and rifle fire, killing an estimated 250 to 300 Lakota men, women, and children, while losing 25 troops, many by friendly fire. The massacre ended the Ghost Dance movement, crushed remaining armed resistance on the plains, and prompted a belated 1990 U.S. Senate apology. 21 soldiers received Medals of Honor, a fact still contested by Native activists. The grim episode highlighted federal policy's lethal mix of fear and misunderstanding, influencing later reforms like the 1934 Indian Reorganization Act. Wounded Knee endures as a symbol of cultural suppression and unresolved historical trauma haunting American conscience and the human rights discourse. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Signed on February 2, 1848, in Mexico City's Basilica of Guadalupe, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the Mexican-American War and transferred 529,000 square miles, nearly half of Mexico's territory, to the United States for $15 million. The cession encompassed present-day California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona, and parts of Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming, expanding U.S. land by one-third and fulfilling Manifest Destiny ambitions. The treaty promised existing Mexican residents citizenship rights and property protections, yet ambiguous language and local courts often stripped them of land, seeding generations of legal battles. Politically, the vast new domain reignited the slavery expansion debate, hastening sectional tensions that led to the Civil War. Economically, it opened mineral wealth, fertile valleys, and Pacific ports, setting the stage for the gold rush, railroad building, and America's emergence as a continental power. Signing of the Homestead Act. On May 20, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act, offering any adult citizen or intended citizen 160 acres of surveyed public land for a small filing fee and 5 years of residence and improvement. By 1934, nearly 2 million claims covered 270 million acres, equaling 10% of U.S. territory. The act lured immigrants, freedmen, and single women westward, populating prairies with sod houses and windmills while boosting grain production that fed industrial cities. Railroads advertised cheap land, transporting settlers and supplies, then shipping wheat and cattle back east, creating a symbiotic growth cycle. Yet homesteading also accelerated displacement of native nations and ignored arid Great Plains ecology. Droughts bankrupted half the claimants. Despite hardships, the policy entrenched the Jeffersonian ideal of yeoman ownership, shaping rural political culture and inspiring later land grant initiatives worldwide from Australia to post-Soviet Eastern Europe. California Gold Rush. On January 24, 1848, carpenter James W. Marshall spotted glittering flakes at Sutter's Mill along California's American River, triggering a gold fever that drew an estimated 300,000 fortune seekers between 1848 and 1855. So-called 49ers arrived by wagon, steamer, and clipper ship, swelling San Francisco from 1,000 residents to 25,000 within 2 years and minting instant millionaires and supply businesses. Miners extracted roughly 750,000 pounds of gold, equivalent to about $50 billion today, financing banks, railroads, and global trade networks. The sudden population boom fast-tracked California's 1850 statehood and intensified debates over slavery's expansion. Hydraulic mining reshaped landscapes, dumping 1.3 billion cubic yards of debris into rivers and sparking early environmental lawsuits. The rush also devastated indigenous communities through disease, violence, and land seizures. Completion of the first transcontinental railroad. On May 10, 1869, at Promontory Summit, Utah Territory, the ceremonial Golden Spike united the Central Pacific and Union Pacific lines, creating a 1,912-mile steel ribbon linking Omaha to Sacramento. The journey that once took overland immigrants 6 months by wagon could now be done in 7 days, suddenly shrinking the nation. Construction employed 15,000 Chinese and 8,000 Irish laborers, blasted through the Sierra Nevada with 13,000 pounds of nitroglycerin, and cost roughly $2 billion in today's dollars. Freight rates between coasts dropped by 80%, while towns blossomed along the right-of-way, accelerating settlement of the Great Basin and Pacific Northwest. The railroad stitched together markets, telegraph lines, and time zones, enabled national mail and troop movement, and crowned U.S. industrial might. More than any single project, it transformed the Old West into an integrated American economy. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below.